Today on episode number 528 of the School of Podcasting, I'm going to go over the questions I got at Podcast Movement 2016 during my presentation, and I'm going to give you a little behind the scenes of having a film crew come to your office. Hit it, ladies!
The School of Podcasting with Dave Jackson.
Podcasting since 2005. I am your personal podcast coach, Dave Jackson. Thanking you so much for coming to the show. If you're new to the show, here's the deal. I've been helping people understand technology for over 20 years. And what I do here is I help you massage your message. I help you tackle the technology, face your fears, and flatten that learning curve and get you on the road to a successful podcast. Our website is schoolofpodcasting.com. Use the coupon code LISTENER when you sign up and save a bunch of cash. And before we get going, if you're new to the show, I like to just jump right into the topics. And I want to give a big shout out to podcastgeargroup.org. If you're a person that just loves to just rock out on podcast gear, microphones, software, things like that, check out podcastgeargroup.org. This is from Mark Johansson. He's the guy behind that. And I'm saying that because Mark spent a fair amount of time trying to resurrect an audio file that I had from Podcast Movement. And in the future, what I'm just going to do is I'm going to get like a little lav mic, and I'm going to take like my Roland RO5. I already have giant squid audio mics now that I think about it, and just pin them to me and record it locally. I put my recorder kind of in the middle of the room when I recorded it, and this was not a room that was closed. This was kind of in the corner of where the vendors were, so there was a lot of noise. And my final test was I put it on my phone and listened through earbuds, and I went, you know what? I can cover this material in a way that's not going to make you have to strain to hear the information. So I want to thank Mark for really giving it the college try. He did clean it up considerably to get it to a better place, but I just was like, there wasn't that much interaction with the audience, and I thought, you know, I can just cover this stuff in a way that sounds so much better. So thank you, Mark, for that. And the first question I got, and this is the one we get over and over and over and over, and I'm not saying that as a complaint, because I would love to know the answer to this question too. But here's how I answered, and that is that question, of course. You want to guess what it is? I'll give you a second. Nope, it's not microphones. It's how do I grow my audience? And that is number one, and if you've listened to this show, you've heard me say this before, know who your audience is, and then know what they want, go where they are, make friends with them. You have to do that first. And then, and if you can, when you make friends with them, bring value to the conversation. Then you tell them about your show. And then make it easy to find, make it easy to share, and make it easy to remember. That's really how you grow your audience, along with Facebook and Twitter and the chat book and the Face Snap and whatever, the Insta book, whatever stuff that is. I'm kidding. But that's really in a nutshell. And unfortunately, we're all looking for that 10,000 download switch. And I'm just here to tell you, it doesn't exist. You just got to, it's one, how do you grow your audience? One listener at a time. And that's why you got to bring the passion. And the next question was, how long should my podcast be? And the thing I always say here is, if you do a podcast, let's say I start the Dave Jackson Power Hour. Welcome to the Dave Jackson Power Hour. That's great as long as there's 60 minutes of content. But if I start the Dave Jackson Power Hour and I got 18 minutes of content, that's a bad thing. And the other thing you don't want to do is do the Dave Jackson Power Hour and have it be 90 minutes long. There's a little thing called editing you might want to look into there. So, and I've given this quote before, the book Beyond Powerful Radio is by Valerie Geller. And she says, there is no such thing as too long, only too boring. And the cool thing that I just discovered is you can now get that book at Audible. Yes. So if you are a member of Audible, you can go over and actually get that book as, you know, whatever it is, one of your free things. It's a really cool book, and it covers a lot of, it's obviously it's all about radio, but a lot of it will, you know, transfer over to podcasts. And if you go to schoolofpodcasting.com/free book, that book is now available on Audible. And you know the story with Audible. You've heard their ad 8 million times. If you're a new member to Audible, you get a free book. And of course, if you don't like it, you just cancel the subscription and you can keep the book. So it's a great book. It's one of my favorite books on radio and content creation in general. A lot of great stuff in it. The next question I handled at Podcast Movement in 2016 is, how do you handle headlines when you have multiple topics in a show? And I really like this question because I have dealt with this for years. And what I finally started doing is, for me, instead of having a headline that was like microphone gear review dash Jason Bryant dash whatever, it didn't make, I was really diluting my headline. And headlines, the title of your blog post, of your podcast, is one of the most important things. And I was diluting it. So what I do now, and this is the beauty of podcasting, you can do whatever you want. For me, I'm going to look at that episode and go, okay, what's the thing that I really think is going to let my audience or get my audience going, oh, wow, I'm really glad I like that part of the show the most. And then I make the headline about that. That's what I'm doing now, because I was diluting my title before, trying to put 27 titles into one title. That didn't work. So let's just pretend like there is one. And then, as always, people don't read, they scan items. So I always make sure that the other topics have kind of a headline look when you go to the actual website. And I also have those in the show notes. Then someone asked about, do I have any tips for doing a live show? And the one thing I always like to point out is, if one of the things that's holding you back from podcasting is I don't want to look stupid, don't start live. Because when you're live, you can say things that are stupid, where when you're doing something that you record and you release later, you can cut out all the stupid stuff. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to worry about sounding stupid when you're not live. Now, in the past, I've used blab.im. I've used Google Hangouts on Air. Blab.im just recently went out of business. And the one I like for me, if you're looking for audience interaction, is now firetalk.com. And I've been using that for a couple weeks now, and it seems to work okay. Now, the beauty of FireTalk is it's free. And so between you and me, I'm using it for now. Who knows what it'll be in a year or so, because I've always said, don't base your podcast on free services. And right now, I use that one for my Ask the Podcast Coach show. And I have other things I could use that I'm looking into. So anytime you're using a free service, you have to be ready to move at a moment's notice. The other thing you have to realize is, when you're doing things live, there will be people that come in and try to ruin your show. Last week, as I was doing Ask the Podcast Coach, and I guess it's because I said, gosh, there don't seem to be as many trolls over here. Somebody signed up and their username was like dirty blank and blank. So it was like body parts kind of stuff. And who then asked a question and insinuated certain things about my sexuality that was rather interesting. And so I deleted his nasty comment, and then I thought I had blocked him, but apparently I didn't. They have to have a way there to kick people out and then have them not come out. So that was kind of a hassle. But that is something that will just happen. And so that is a skill that you have to be able to just not burst into tears. Somebody came in the room and shouted, Baba Booey. You got to just like keep calm and go, all right, thank you, nasty person, and keep on going. The other thing with live, if you're lucky, you're going to get 5%, maybe 10% if you're like, wow, people listening to your show. 90% of the people that listen to Ask the Podcast Coach listen later. That's the magic of podcasting, is it's time shifted. Now, on the other hand, live is addicting. It's cool getting instant feedback. And the people that show up live are really, really fans of that show. So I'm not completely poo-pooing live. It's just, it's a whole nother skill set. It's a little more technical, depending on what you're doing, if you're playing your music and things like that live. And if you're saying, I'm going to do a call-in show and my audience will be the content, when you first start out, you don't have an audience yet, so you're not going to have any content. So I always do that show. I do with Jim Collison from theaverageguy.tv, and we always kind of have topics that we are ready to talk about. We go out and scour the news, we find questions and things like that. But there are those weeks that it's a little intense because I'm like, I didn't have any time to do any show prep. I hope people call in. And I'm very lucky at this point that I usually have like 30 people over there asking questions. So if you ever want free podcast consulting, askthepodcastcoach.com/live every Saturday at 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. Somebody else asked, should I put my face out there? And in this case, if your brand and you are the same thing, like if you are your brand, then it might be a good idea. Now, the thing that I do use with caution here is you might think twice if you're a woman. And if you go, really? Why? I have a very simple answer to that, and that is guys are creepy. Guys are they're just creepy. And on one hand, an attractive female, if we just go completely stereotypical, will grab the attention of people. So just go into that and go in with both your eyes open, because I haven't heard of a lot of super creepy guys with female podcasters, but I have heard stories. So just be careful with that. And I don't want to say that to scare people off, because they're creepy guys at the grocery store too. So just keep that in mind. But if I was doing something where I wanted you to connect with me because I'm the brand, I guess at the School of Podcasting, I'm kind of the brand in a little bit. I mean, I have my own logo and things like that, but you might want to it's a way to get people to know you. And that way, when you go to a conference or when you actually go, remember I said, when you're growing your audience, go there. Well, now they'll actually recognize you. And then somebody asked, what do you think about regional podcasts? Because one of the great things about podcasting is it's a global audience. I mean, Sirius Satellite Radio is cool because when you drive across the country, you don't lose any of the signal. But I believe there are certain countries that don't get Sirius Satellite Radio. I think one of them is Canada. If I remember, it's been a while since I've had a Sirius subscription. But I know for a while it didn't go into Canada, which was kind of a bummer. And with podcasting, it is global. Now, if we go the opposite, what if I do a hyper-local show? And I swear, if there were more hours in the day, I would start a local podcast, because I think it would be easier to get advertisers, because you could get the local mom and pop stores and things of that nature. And that's a long-term goal of mine, maybe 2017. If I can whittle some things off my plate, I might do that. But I think they're a great idea. And Kevin Smith at Podcast Movement had a great line. He says, failure is not starting a podcast that people didn't like. That's not failure. Failure is not starting the podcast. Because how are you going to know unless you try it? So, yeah, I think regional podcasts would be great. It seems kind of weird because you're like, but why would somebody in Colorado listen to a show about Maine? Well, maybe they used to live there. I know there's a WNIR, Winter 100, does the Talk of Akron, which is where I'm from, Akron, Ohio. And I know a lot of people that would move out of Akron because, well, there's nothing here. And they would still listen to that show on the internet just to keep up with what was going on in the local city. What's the biggest mistake when it comes to making content? And I answer it this way: guessing what your audience wants. Because we said step one of growing your audience is to give them what they want. Well, if you don't know what they want, now you're kind of guessing. And it's kind of like you end up with a gift card mentality, right? Your podcast is a gift. And so what do? You give them an Amazon gift card. If it's a Secret Santa or something like that, and you get somebody that you've never heard of, and you're like, I'm just going to give them an Amazon card, because then they can buy whatever they want, which is fine. It's not a bad gift, but it's not very personal. It's not very touching. When I get a gift card, now granted, I appreciate gift cards, but I think we all in our mind go, oh, look, somebody ran out of time and had to buy a present or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But so that would be one mistake, guessing what your audience wants, because it's easy. It's easy to put up a survey, go to a couple Facebook groups, a couple Google communities, go to a meetup, and find out what people are talking about. Another mistake, including personal family details. Now, what I mean by this is not details about you, details about your family. Like your son might not want it broadcast to the world that he got an F on his test. right? You have to be very careful about revealing details about your family. Now, I can talk all day about me because it's my podcast, but be very careful with that. And that's not so much a mistake for your audience. Your audience doesn't care if you reveal details about your family. I'm saying your family might worry about that. So keep that in mind. Then the other thing is a mistake. You need to know why you're doing your podcast, because you can talk all day about what your audience wants to hear. We're like, that's step number 1. Know your audience. Step number 2, give them what they want. But if that topic doesn't line up with your goal, then that's going to cause issues, right? If your audience wants to talk about, NASCAR, and that's great, that's awesome, they all love NASCAR, but you're really trying to sell houses, or you're trying to, maybe you're in the stock market or whatever it is, your goal is to hope to drive people a certain direction, and they're driving in a completely different direction. That's when you got to go, why am I doing this again? Because you got to make sure your why and your overall goal line up. Doesn't make any sense if it doesn't. What are the beginning stages of a podcast? What do they look like? What can I expect? This is that whole, when people have babies and you go to the doctor and it's like, well, it's time for a 6-month checkup. And you're like, oh, is he supposed to be doing this and that? And is he developing okay? Is she okay? Is she tall enough? Is she fat enough? Is he tall enough? Is it, should he have this much baby weight? How many teeth does he have? And we're just like, oh, am I keeping up with the Joneses? Well, the first things first, I always tell people when you have start off, you're going to have a small audience, maybe 100 people, maybe 50. And that's a good thing, because now you can answer every email, you can answer every comment, you can answer every tweet. You can really, really connect with your audience. And that makes those people, they become your brand advocate. It's your sales team. It's the people that are going to go out and say, hey, did you hear this show? And one of the reasons they do that, and this is kind of weird sometimes, but you're the host. You are the host. That's right, the big host. You are the official Big Shot Smarty Pants. You're the person behind the mic, and that carries weight with it, whether you want it to or not. And when you reach out to your audience, they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I just got an email from you. Now, the other thing, if you listen to the feed, it's a great podcast. It's the official podcast from Libsyn, LIBSYN.com, one of the largest media hosting companies, who I happen to work for, by the way. Use the coupon code SOPFREE and get a free month at Libsyn. So if you're getting into podcasting, that's a great place to start. And they release stats at the end of their show. And Rob Walsh, who is the vice president of podcast relations, it's usually around 150, 160. 50% of people get more than 150 downloads an episode, and 50% get less. And you're like, that seems kind of low. It's because there's so many people starting podcasts that have 7 downloads per episode because they're brand new. The average is around 2,000-ish. So that's something. But realize, though, if you say, oh, man, I don't have 150 downloads. I only have 78. What if one of those people is the CEO of a company that you would die to know if they were listening to it? One of the things that I died and went to heaven, I was at New Media Expo probably 2 years ago. It was the year before I took it over. And I was in a talk of Michael Hyatt. He wrote the book Platform. He does This Is Your Life, Platform University. Great guy. Love Michael Hyatt. And I asked him a question at the end of his session. And he said, oh, I know, Dave. I listened to your show. And I was like, Michael Hyatt listens to my show? Are you kidding me? I was ready. So if I had said, well, I've only got 4 people listening to my show, one of them might be Michael Hyatt. And if you don't know Michael Hyatt, I know I talked about Valerie Geller. Platform is a great book. That's one of the books I read every year just to kind of steer me back into what I need to be doing. And everything I'm talking about today, you can find at schoolofpodcasting.com/528. Now, speaking of that, when I start a podcast about topic A, and all of a sudden my audience wants to go to topic B, because podcasts are a little bit like children in the fact that they have their own personality sometimes, the audience. Well, okay, so you started the podcast to talk about topic A. And let's just use ice cream. You wanted to talk about chocolate ice cream. And your audience just seems fascinated with strawberry ice cream. And so the question is, well, what do? I wanted to talk about chocolate, but they want to talk about strawberry. Well, if you want to talk about that topic as well, and again, that topic aligns with your goal, well, then go ahead and talk about strawberry ice cream, if that's okay with you. If the topic is something you don't want to talk about, I don't know anything about strawberry ice cream, well, then don't. And because if you try to, A, talk about things that you don't know about, you're liable to make yourself look stupid again. It's also where you're like super passionate about chocolate ice cream. Oh, the mocha and the da-da-da, and you just love chocolate. But when it comes to strawberry, you're like, it's all right. That's going to come through to your audience. And if you're not excited about it, they're probably not going to get excited about it, even though they want to talk about it. You'll know when people are mailing it in. And so keep that in mind. And also, again, like I said, make sure it's in line with your goal. And also, just if you're talking about a subject that's not something you're interested in, when you're trying to do something that's not yourself, it's hard. And you will start doing, or you'll start dreading, I guess is another way of looking at this. You'll start dreading creating your podcast. There was a commercial, many moons ago for Dunkin' Donuts, and this guy was going, "Time to make the donuts," because he had to get up really early to do it. And you'll find yourself going, "Time to make the podcast," if you're talking about stuff that you just don't care. Many moons ago, I went to a Sammy Hagar concert here in Akron, Ohio. This little small venue was awesome. And at the end, Sammy came out and started playing The Who, like songs from The Who and another song by Led Zeppelin. And he said, "Look, I know you're probably wondering, like, why am I playing this stuff?" He goes, "I'm on tour, like, however many months." And he goes, "If I get bored, we're all just screwed," basically. He didn't say screwed, but you get the point. And I thought that was funny, but that's the truth. If you're not happy with your subject, you're not going to want to talk about it. Then somebody asked me, they said, "Look, I'm an accountant, and sometimes people don't want to hear what they need to hear." And I said, well, and they were kind of like, "So what do you do in that case?" Well, here's the thing. Number one, not everyone, in the immortal words of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men, some people just can't handle the truth. And I'm a big fan of John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneur on Fire. Super nice guy. He's just so stinking John Lee Dumas. He also wrote the Freedom Journal. And you want to talk about passion, discipline, and this is a guy that's just killing it. He's making literally millions of dollars with his podcast, and that did not happen overnight. It happened with a lot of work, a lot of discipline, things like that. But everybody thought when he first came out and really just was crushing it, if I just do what John does, I'll make millions too. And it just doesn't work that way. And I always say you're never going to out John Lee Dumas, because it comes to him naturally. And so I had to kind of tell people, not that John is lying by any means, because he's telling you exactly what he did. But I do have to tell people, just because John is doing that doesn't mean if you do exactly what he does, you're not going to get the same results. You might, but typically any kind of copy of something else is not as good as the original. And John was kind of an original when he came out. He was a guy that was doing a daily show. And back in the day, that just wasn't something that was happening a lot, especially for entrepreneurs. So keep that in mind. So not everybody can handle the truth. And also, if you are saying things that people maybe disagree with, but you're like, "No, this is the truth," that's okay. Not everybody's going to like you. And those people that don't like you, in most cases, will tune out. And in some cases, they'll tune in because they love to hate you. It's weird. I have a couple of shows like that. I scream at the dashboard in my car. I'm like, "What are you thinking? That is so wrong. Quit giving out bad information." And the other thing, if you're delivering things and you're kind of worried that your audience isn't going to want to hear it, maybe, you got to give them a little tough love, maybe. When delivering not so great information, back it up with your research. Back it up with whatever facts that you are using to shape your opinion. So you could say, "Well, according to this, when I did this, this happened. When I did this, this happened. And I read here in this article, this, and then I tried this. And because of all this, this is why I think that." So that way you can give them the research and let them come to their own conclusion. Or, and here's the beauty of podcasting, if you give them your research, Maybe they've done their own research, and now you can have that lovely word that I love. I love this word, and that is dialogue. You can have a dialogue to go, here's what I think, and here's why. And they go, here's what I think, and here's why. And you go, wow, I didn't know that. And they go, I didn't know that about your thing. And then you talk about it, and you can both come together and figure out what the truth is, because there's always your side, their side, and the truth. And then the last question that I got from somebody, and I get this one a lot, how do I come back after a long hiatus? Well, let's say you've never launched a podcast. At this point, you've been on hiatus since 2004, right? It's been 12 years since you've released a podcast, because podcasting started back in 2004. Well, how did you get over that 12-year hiatus? Well, you figured out what your audience wanted to hear, you recorded it, and you put it out. That's kind of the same way. I'll give you an example. The very first podcast I ever did is now called The Marketing Musician, and it has not had an episode out since November, mainly because there's a classic example of I just don't have the passion for that subject anymore. And when I go to record that show, I'm kind of like, time to do the podcast. And so I have 2 more episodes I'm going to put out over there. And it's going to be fun. I think I'm going to put one out here in a week or 2. And it's going to be interesting to see what the downloads are after taking a 6-month hiatus. And I did the hiatus. You couldn't do it worse, meaning I didn't announce it. I just didn't show up for 6 months. And so anybody that I was part of their routine, they're like, yeah, it's Monday, time for a Marketing Musician podcast. For 6 months, they're like going, hey, is Dave, I don't think Dave's coming back. And they may have unsubscribed. So, but at this point, the question is, how do I come back after I left? You just start. And the other thing I always say is, do not start off that episode, hey, I'm back, I'm so sorry. Don't start with an apology. Do that at the end. For the people who have made it through, they like your content. Then you can say, hey, I know I haven't been around in a couple months. And if you want to give why, you can. But a lot of times I don't think people care. I think they just care that you're back. And so if you can say, hey, I took a couple weeks off, and things have been worked out, and here's the schedule going forward, that's fine. But we feel indebted to our audience. I think I've always said why anytime I've ever taken a hiatus. I've never taken a hiatus on this show, but I have on other ones. And that's the way to do it if you're going to take a hiatus. And let me give you an example of this, why I think that's the way to do them. Have you ever, I once at my church worked in the nursery. And boy, I tell you what, remember how I said podcasts are a lot like children? When parents leave their children for an hour, they're like, all right, you're going to stay here and have fun. You can color and all this other stuff. And they're explaining all the ways they're going to benefit. And they're like, mommy and daddy will be right back. And as they're backing away from the door, the kid's starting to like, and they're like, we're going to be right back. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Mommy, daddy, it's okay. And that was their way, right? They're announcing their hiatus. We're going to be gone for an hour. We'll be right around the corner. It's okay. And hopefully the kid will handle it. But it's the parents that they hand off Junior and book. And Junior turns around and they're like, where's my mommy? Yeah. So when you can announce your hiatus, it's much less stressful on your audience. So those are the questions that I answered at Podcast Movement. And again, I do want to give a shout out to Mark Johansson of Podcast Gear Group for trying to resurrect that file. And he definitely made it sound better, but when I listened to it through earbuds, I'm like, you know what? I got a microphone right here. I can just redo that thing, and it's much more pleasant to listen to in this version.
This podcast is part of the Power of Podcasting Network. Find it at powerofpodcasting.com. Changing the world, one download at a time.
Speaking of podcast gear talk, I recently purchased an Aphex 230. This is and you do not need this for the record. This is so icing on the cake. It's a voice processor. And I've been using a Behringer Xenix 1832. And again, way overkill for a beginner podcast. And I think I'm going to be swapping this out because all the stuff I used to do with it, on the live call-in show. I had a phone coming in. I had a co-host coming in. I had me. I was playing live music. So I needed all these tons of buttons, basically. And I don't do that anymore. I still have the call-in show, but I don't have the phone anymore, and I don't need all those buttons and stuff. But basically, I've never been super happy with my sound, and I tried something. When you're troubleshooting, you can take things out of the picture. So I was like, all right, let's eliminate the mixer. Let's just go. In this case, I went from my microphone into my microphone processor right into my portable recorder. And you know what? It sounded a whole lot better. And I'm like, much less hiss. And this is after I'd gone through and made sure I had the right input in and wasn't clipping and things like this to really reduce the hiss. But I was getting a ton of hiss. So I was like, all right, there's something, for whatever reason, in the mixer that's adding a bunch of hiss. And so then I thought about this and like, all right, what else can we figure out with the mixer? And I was going from basically the main outs of the mixer via a 1/4-inch jack into the line-in jack of my portable recorder via a 3.5 millimeter or a 1/8-inch headphone jack, basically. And I was like, let's try going, because this particular mixer has an XLR. Now, that's the kind of big round microphone jacks with the 3 holes in them. And I took the XLR jack out of the mixer into the recorder, and you know what? Much, much, much less hiss. So it may be, because I have a really long cord for the other way, the 1/4-inch to headphone jack kind of thing. And this just sounds, way noticeably. Not a lot of times we get freaked out with sound and we hear that. No, this was noticeably different. And so that's what I'm doing right now. And I think in the end, I'm going to swap out this mixer for a smaller one that I have, because the only thing this mixer does that I like is it has a mute button. And this smaller mixer that I have that A, will take up less room, B, has much less things to go wrong with it. I can always just buy a mute button, or I don't know, turn the volume knob down. But just a little behind the scenes of what's going on here with the studio and my sound and things of that nature. And when in doubt, check your cables. Well, this weekend was very, what's the phrase here? A lot of activity. I woke up, did Ask the Podcast Coach. Again, every Saturday, askthepodcastcoach.com/live, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. And the idea was, at the end of the show, the messengers, now this is an actual documentary film being made about podcasting, was going to show up at my house about the time that show ended, to the point where I gave them a video on how to get to my house and just told them to walk on in. So that was going to be really, really cool. And then I got a text at 9 o'clock saying our flight has been delayed. And to make a long story short, they didn't get here. We had a Cleveland, well, now we're calling it the Northeast Ohio podcaster meetup. And you can find that at NE for Northeast, Ohio, podcasters.com. NEOhio podcasters.com. So if you're in the Cleveland, Akron, Canton area, check that out. And we had a meetup at a local library. And they made it was from 3 to 5 o'clock, and they got there at 4:15. So thank you, Frontier Airlines. Who knew that you needed there was something wrong with the wing? And I guess you need your wings to work if you're flying. That's weird. But it was kind of weird that Frontier apparently only has one plane. They call it Fred. And Fred was broken, so they had to fix Fred before it flew. I don't know how that works, but it was really annoying. And I got to tell you, the messengers, I've been doing a documentary about, or I've been doing a podcast about the documentary. And I know these guys were working hard. Holy cow. Holy cow, do these guys work hard. I mean, they're just, because they have full-time jobs. And then they're going around all over the world filming different podcasters and things of this nature. And I could just tell they were pooped when they got here, but they push through. They do phenomenal work. And I'm telling you, the amount of detail that they go in to make sure the shot is right. And I mean, it's it was like they'd get ready to shoot. They'd be like, all right, roll audio, click, say the number, cut the thing, all right, and cut, and all right, and step down, and blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, this is like the real deal. And I got to say, it was a little weird at first. I mean, I've made a living talking to groups as a trainer in corporate world for, over 20 years. I've been a keynote speaker. I've been, I've spoken at many conferences. At one point, I was an assistant pastor. So talking to groups is not a problem. But this was different. It was for people, not 20, not 50, not 100, not whatever. And the fact it took me a little second to kind of get in the groove. But the good news is they asked me questions about podcasting, and I was off to the races. So it was really, really cool. The other thing that was really nice is Angelo Mandato from Blueberry. He's the CTO over there. He lives down in Columbus. He came up for the Podcasters Meetup, and we all got to hang out. We went out to dinner, and Daniel J. Lewis came up from Cincinnati from the Audacity to Podcast, and a bunch of other great people were there, as long as our regular Cleveland Podcaster Meetup people. And Kim from onthetablepodcast.net. Wait, I did that wrong. onthetablepodcast.com. And Toastmasters101.net. There we go. But I got to tell you, here's the really coolest thing I learned over the weekend that was like, this is so awesome. You got to check out Scott Sykora is how I'm going to pronounce it. Sykora. I just call him Scott. And he does The Beardcaster. And if you're like, what? Yep, thebeardcaster.com. And what he does is he does a podcast about professional, competitive bearding. How niche is that? I want to go to a competition because it is like, on your marks, get set, beard. And they go, come on, beard harder. I mean, it's cool. Do they sniff it? Do they smell it? How does that, I got to check out one of Scott's competitions. And here's the really cool thing about this. We're going to have, and I'm holding you to this, Scott, we're going to have it because of my podcast story from Scott. And the guy's only 14 episodes in. How cool is that? So if you always think, I don't know if anybody would listen to my show, and he's actually doing really good with download numbers. I don't want to share his numbers because I don't have permission. But if you think nobody will listen to the show, I got news for you. Yeah, they will. And I'm really interested to watch Scott's progression as thing goes on. We also had 2 new people show up that didn't have a podcast. And so if you're somebody in that area, again, check out NEOhioPodcasters.com. And having a crew come up was really, really cool. And Daniel J. Lewis, as I said, from the Audacity to Podcast showed up, and he actually spent the night, which was cool. And it's just one of those things that the more you hang out with people, the more you get to know them. And the more you get to know them, the more you either like or dislike them, or the relationship grows and things of that nature. So in that aspect, it was kind of a win-win all the way around. And yes, they did film Bernie, who was making his presence known. Luckily, not during the filming, but they did go down. They're like, "Man, your cat has a sweater on." I'm like, "Yeah, I know." It's and you could see where my cat is somewhat psychotic, and he will lick himself naked, like he will lick all of his fur off. And so I have clothes on him, so he can't do that. But then he actually bites through the sweater until I buy him a new one. But he's size 3M, so I've now learned that. And it was a great weekend, and those guys are awesome. And right now, you can go to it's The Messengers Doc, which is short for documentary, themessengersdoc.com. Sign up, get on their newsletter, and you also get behind the scenes. You'll be part of the Facebook group. You can get some swag. But here's the big thing. If you want to actually help us get this movie finished, please consider going to supportthemessengers.com. That's supportthemessengers.com. Literally like $1, $5, whatever you got, 30 cents, got it, whatever. Supportthemessengers.com. I want to see this movie get created because, man, the professionalism is off the hook with this. And I kind of like it because there's a lot of, and I kind of hate the whole procaster, indie podcaster, because to me, I think we're all just content creators, but there's a lot of a focus on indie podcasters. And so do consider going to supportthemessengers.com and throwing in a shekel, a penance, a whatever you got, and help get this movie made. This one is right around the corner, a couple weeks. Want to let you know I'll be at Podcast Mid-Atlantic. This is a 2-day event in the Philadelphia, PA area, 18 days as I look at their website here. And I'll be there. I'll be on a couple panels, which will be great. And the way they work this is last year I did a presentation, and they basically, to have new speakers every time, this year they're having me on a panel. And so the people that are speaking this year, next year we'll be on a panel. Maybe I'll be back speaking next year. So they really focus on creative items here. And it's a fairly inexpensive conference. And Joe puts on a good show over there, and a lot of networking going on. And if you're interested in this, go to podcastmidatlantic.com/SOP, and you can save $10 off your ticket. And that'll be very, very cool. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also going to be speaking at PodFest. That's at podfest.us. This is next year. And we're going to set up some sort of podcast or a School of Podcasting meetup. We're going to have some sort of special party for the School of Podcasting there. So I'll give you more information about that, but put that on your calendar. This is going to be in Florida in 2017, and February 23rd through the 25th, Orlando, Florida. Really, really looking forward to it. And I see that I'm on the slides. If you go over to podfest.us, they have like a slideshow on the front of the thing. It's at the this awesome resort that's going to be really, really cool. And what we'll be doing there, one of the great things about that particular event is that is where we will be premiering the movie, The Messengers, if all things go according to plan. So that's one of the things I'm looking forward to as well. But put that on your calendar, and I will keep you. I'm going to add a page to the School of Podcasting that shows all of my speaking engagements that are coming up. And if you would like me to come speak at an event that you're having, please let me know. And I love to do that. And also, if you would like to interview me on your podcast, if you're ever thinking that, he wouldn't come on my show, yeah, I would. Because if I get to talk about podcasting, you don't have to ask me twice. So that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. And if you need some help with podcasting, go out to schoolofpodcasting.com. You can actually hire me for one-on-one consulting. And all that information is out there, as well as my contact information. And we will see you next week with another episode of the School of Podcasting. Until then, take care. God bless. Class is dismissed. And we'll see you again real soon.